We have Jackie Costa, the Director of Programs and Partnership with us. Carolyn Cummings, who's the Director of Fundraising and Supporter Relations. We have also the Director of Finance, Alice. Is she here? I think I saw her.
I'm here.
Oh, good, Alice. I'm so glad that you're here to be with us today at our annual general meeting. We also have a number of staff also supporting us on the technical aspects. So there's Brian and Andrea and Janice. So thank you all for your for attending today. We'll also have some visitors coming in. Peter Simpson, the auditor, and the accountant from Norton Macmillan will be coming in. He was the fellow who audited our financials last year with the help of our staff. He'll be joining us a bit later. As well, we'll be having all three of our newest honorary associates. At this time, I'd like to invite Deborah Edwards, diocesan representative from Fredericton, to open our meeting with a prayer and reflection and give the land acknowledgement. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. I don't know if my picture's very clear or not, and I apologize for my scratchy voice. I'm quite well today, but I have had COVID for the last week. But it's noon to you all, and thank you so much for the invitation to share a few thoughts and to offer prayer this afternoon. But I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the land on which the Diocese of Fredericton is located includes the traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Passamaquoddy, and Wolastoqey peoples. Well, it's September, and here in the Maritimes, it's been a very hot, dry September, and as yet, there's not a lot of signs of fall. It's also the time of the liturgical year when we remember creation. I've been trying to be more intentional about the season of creation this year, trying to practice being present to creation. For instance, when I'm out walking Tilly, our dog, I've noticed that if I just pay attention to her, she can give me the best lesson in being present, because she smells and sees and hears and senses and for me, or the next day, or I think about wherever my mind takes. I try to come back to the trees, change color, to notice the squirrels preparing for winter, and to sense that particular feeling. That means that autumn is in the air. And has reminded me about two wonderful concepts. Participation. Teachings from the Orthodox. These ideas, consent and participation, can guide and inspire us to partner with God. We consent to the Spirit to change us into a more godlike image. And we participate with God in presenting that image to the world around us. We consent to loving God and our neighbor as ourselves. And we use that consent to participate in God's world with his children. God always wants to partner with us. And that reminds me of the very core. Our world with God to bring relief and sustainable development. It's heartwarming to know mutuality and respect accompany consent and participation. We are all changed, and we are all becoming more, and our world is gradually becoming more just, more peaceful, and more healthy. So let us pray. We thank you, Lord, for the seasons of autumn and creation. Help us to be always mindful of your constant presence in our midst. Help us to see creation around us with your eyes. We pray for this AGM of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund. We continue to pray for Will and his leadership, for all staff and board members, including those yet to be elected, and Valerie as she completes her term, the youth council members, diocesan and parish representatives. In addition, we remember all the ongoing projects and partners, and we offer thanks for those who faithfully give to support the work of PWRDF. We remember with thanks Archbishop Linda as she settles into retirement, and ask for God's richest blessing to be upon her now and always. Help us always to hold the trust of partners with humility and respect, remembering partnership to be a sacred and precious endeavor. We pray that the work of PWRDF will truly contribute to a more just, healthy, and peaceful world. In the name of God, our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you for your reflection. And I would like now at this time to ask Will to unmute and give us some housekeeping advice. Will.
Thanks, Valerie, and thanks, Deborah, for that lovely centering prayer as well. Hey, here we are on Zoom for our annual general meeting. Thank you so much for being here. Just a few things as we're together, yes, from our different places and different parts of our homes or wherever we may be calling in. Hey, please do use the chat function should you feel comfortable for comments. Even some questions, perhaps. A reminder as we go through the meeting, this is an AGM and there will be voting. Voting will be done by a poll. As Valerie said, Brian is here to help us show the poll and gather in the responses to a poll. You'll see the poll on screen, and only just a reminder to build on what Valerie shared, just voting members may vote. So some of you who cannot vote, if you're not members, not staff, our precious honorary associates who are here, please do not vote. But others who are members do vote. Brian and Andrea, they'll work with the results and communicate the poll results to Valerie so that Valerie can then share the results of each and every one of those polls based on the motions that you see in the agenda to all of us. Participants, you can raise your hand by way of clicking on the heart icon below on the screen where it says raise hand. So you may raise your hand that way, and you can raise your hand the good old-fashioned traditional way if needed as well, but you may want to make use of the Zoom feature. A reminder just to remain on mute throughout the meeting, just to minimize other kind of background noises. Unmute when you're speaking and sharing, asking a question. And if there are technical questions or just things that aren't quite working, please feel free to send a chat message in that little box in chat. If you're familiar with that, just direct them to Andrea or Brian or Janice. Janice is with us here, but she's also managing our live stream, which is happening also on our PWRDF YouTube. So those are the few kind of housekeeping pieces, Valerie, that may be helpful for everyone as we begin our meeting together.
Yes, thank you. Will, I looked for the raise hand function on the bottom of my screen. It isn't under a heart on mine, but it's a smiley face and it says reactions. So
Okay.
please, if you can, use that to not only put your hand up, but also to lower it. That's good. And thank you for reminding us who can vote. That's wonderful. The agenda is a part of the consent agenda, as is the AGM minutes from September 22nd, 2023. I wondered if, Will, if you could put that up, because there's some changes as of late last night. We've had to break up some of the agenda items to allow for the elections.
Maybe I've just put it up there. Maybe you want to just check in with Cynthia on quorum.
Oh, yes,
and whether
thank
we
you.
have that quorum
I haven't done that.
landed for all of us.
That's good to have that reminder. Thank you. Over to Cynthia. Is there?
So a quorum would be 18 members. I don't yet have an official count, but my own count says there are 34 voting members here. So we are well within quorum.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will proceed then with the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And as I say, the agenda is in this consent agenda, meaning that there's no discussion. You will see also that there's the AGM minutes there from September 22nd, 2023. Okay, and Will is just coming to where there's some changes. Sorry, if you could just show that in the nomination report is in two parts. Will be an election. There'll be a couple motions with the election, and then after the honorary associates are honored, we'll have the results and the rest of the motions from the nominating committee. That just allows time for the staff and our scrutineer, who is Cynthia, to tabulate the results, make sure they're good. If there is a tie or anything, they'll be able to get a ballot for a second ballot to break the tie. So there it is. I wonder, could I entertain a motion that the consent agenda be approved as circulated, including the annual general meeting and the minutes of the annual general meeting? Oh, goodness. I don't, could someone?
I think Lynn has raised her hand.
Who is it?
Lynn Shoemaker.
Oh, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. It's a lot of people to look through. Thank you, Lynn. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Cynthia.
Cynthia, thank you. There is no discussion. So, Brian, I will let you put the poll up for this. We're just waiting for the results and everyone to finish voting. Good. And do we have some results?
Yes, it's passed in favor.
Thank you. So it is carried. Wonderful. And we'll move on to the next agenda item. It's an amendment to the bylaw number 1, section 5, and directors. I'm going to turn that over to Cynthia now. our head of governance, Cynthia.
Thank you. I am going to get that on my screen. And just give me a moment. I apologize. I did have that on my screen. I did have that ready. Let's try again. Here we go. So, these bylaws, so in order to amend our bylaws, it first has to, the amendments have to go to the board for approval and then brought to the meeting of members. And you will have noticed in an email from Will a few days ago, maybe, that he made reference to these proposed bylaw amendments that have been drafted in consultation with other organizations, as Will said, and in support of good organizational practice and governance. And I would also add that in some cases, is also to add some clarity to our bylaws, and I'll explain those instances as we go through. I would also add that we have sought and taken legal advice with respect to these bylaws. For most of the changes that are being proposed, they will need to be adopted by a 2/3 majority because we are proposing a change in how membership is determined. There is one proposed change that will not require a 2/3 majority, but a simple majority. And so I'll take you through that one first and make a separate motion for that one. And that first bylaw change is one that's added for clarity. And just a little bit of background. So for if you go into the section in our Constitution on directors, the section 502 says the board will be comprised of the fixed number of directors within the range set out in the articles as determined from time to time by the members, including the primate and at least one representative of each of the Anglican Council of Indigenous Peoples, the PWRDF Youth Council, and the House of Bishops of the Church. At each annual meeting of members, the members will by resolution elect the number of directors that is required, and it goes on from there. So for a number of years, the question has arisen at our annual meeting whether we needed to actually elect those appointees. Of course, they're appointees, so it's not, we don't actually get to choose them. And so if we look at those bylaws that I just read out, it doesn't say that they need to be elected. It doesn't specify anywhere else in the bylaws that they need to be elected. And so we're proposing that we would add in the following paragraph to make it clear how the process works. And the paragraph is, at each annual meeting of members, the members will by resolution affirm the appointments of the Anglican Council of Indigenous Peoples, the PWRDF Youth Council, and the House of Bishops of the Church. And not only will that clarify it, but this is also provides us with the means really to welcome and acknowledge those people who are appointed by the various groups. And because that is not a change in the terms of membership, this motion requires a simple majority. And so I move that we add the following paragraph to section 5.02 of the bylaws. At each annual meeting of members, the members will by resolution affirm the appointments of the Anglican Council of Indigenous Peoples, the PWRDF Youth Council, and the House of Bishops of the Church.
Second.
Okay, so that was Cynthia has moved this, and
Peter.
and the seconder, could you please tell me who you
Peter.
were?
Peter Wall.
Oh, Peter, thank you. Are there any questions? I thank the membership for allowing us to take this out of the larger amendment motion. Cynthia just asked me to do that, and I gave her permission with your indulgence in mind. All right, hearing no questions, I think we're ready for the vote. And I would ask maybe Cynthia and others if perhaps you could help me. I'm going to ask people to raise their hand. There's a motion on the floor. Please raise your hand if you're in favor of adding this paragraph.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm raising my hand, Valerie, but because I'm screen sharing, I don't see the reaction thing at the bottom.
Okay, I wondered if you could unshare the screen so we could take a look. I can't see anybody either.
Okay.
You can also go to the view button, Valerie, and change to gallery, and you'll see all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like a lot of hands.
Good. All right. I believe it. There it is. And thank you. And believe that's carried. Thank you. Would you like to continue, Cynthia?
Thank you. So that was pretty straightforward. The next section actually is much more complex. The current qualification, section 5.03, sets out who is qualified to be a director of the PWRDF board. Those requirements are included in federal regulations. They're not ones that we kind of made up ourselves. They're ones that are in the federal regulations for not-for-profit organizations. As I said, we sought some legal advice because here's the issue which the proposed changes hopes to address. And I'm going to use, if you look at the qualifications, person is not less than 18 years of age, have not been declared incapable by a court in Canada or in another country, and do not have the status of bankrupt. So for simplification purposes, I'm going to use the example of a person who has the status of bankrupt. If somebody is elected to our board of directors who qualifies, so in other words, they're not bankrupt, but during their tenure becomes bankrupt, then two things. There is no duty to disclose. So unless that person discloses or we find out from some other way, the board has no way of knowing. Secondly, there is no mechanism other than calling a meeting of members for that person to no longer sit on the board when clearly, according to the federal regulations for not-for-profit organizations, they are no longer eligible to sit on the board. And I don't think we can understate the organizational risk to us of having a board of directors with people on the board who are not eligible to be on the board. So what these changes propose is to have a more streamlined process, and I'll go through the changes one by one and explain it. So a bit more of a streamlined process, but also a process that will build in safeguards and protections for people who are involved. And it also expands the definition of who is ineligible. And again, in this expansion of the definition, we are keeping with federal regulations, and we are responding to the legal advice that we have received. So I will go through, and then if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to hear that. So what we're proposing is that the current section 5.03 would be deleted and replaced with, under qualifications, directors will be individuals who are not disqualified or ineligible. The following individuals are disqualified from serving as a director of the corporation: anyone who is less than 18 years of age, anyone who is mentally incapable. And that was put in to clarify, because what does incapable mean was the question we often received about the original qualification. A person who has the status of bankrupt, and anyone who is ineligible by virtue of section 5.03A, subject to a decision under section 5.04B. And that will become clearer. It sounds a bit confusing, but the section 5.04B describes the safeguards that I mentioned earlier. So 5.03A, this is the expansion of ineligibility. So subject to section 5.04B, again, the safeguards that we propose, for the purposes of this bylaw and the other bylaws of the corporation, an individual is ineligible who has been convicted of a criminal offense, including where the individual has been found guilty and received an absolute discharge or a conditional discharge on conditions set out in a probation order. B, even if there was no criminal charge, has been found guilty of a statutory or regulatory offense, found guilty in disciplinary proceedings, found liable in civil proceedings, dismissed from any office or employment because of acts or omissions that would have constituted a criminal offense if prosecuted, as well as for any act of fraud or dishonesty. C, has been found to have discriminated intentionally in contravention of applicable human rights legislation. For the purposes of section 5.03A, a decision described in subsections A through C includes any decision by a competent authority, notwithstanding any pending appeal or other form of review. B, acts or omissions that would have been prohibited in Canada are included, even if they occurred outside of Canada. And 5.03, the duty to disclose. Directors who have reason to believe they are ineligible pursuant to sections 5.03 and 5.03A shall immediately disclose such fact to the board through the chair and the executive director. That's just two people, and the reason that is two people as opposed to the whole board is we felt that for the person's privacy and in respect of the person, we would keep it to two people. Cessation of the term of office. A director who ceases to be eligible pursuant to sections 5.03 and 5.03A shall, in the absence of a request to be heard made by the director to the executive committee within the period set out in the notice under section 5.04A, cease to hold the office of director of the corporation at the end of the period set out in the notice without any further action or formality, and the vacancy so created may be filled in the manner prescribed by section 5.08 of this bylaw. That's the streamlining that I mentioned earlier. This would not then require a meeting of members, because if a person is no longer eligible, then they can no longer hold that office. And here's the part that includes the safeguards. The executive committee shall give directors who would otherwise be ineligible pursuant to section 5.03A notice that they have the right within a reasonable period to be set out in the notice to ask to be heard by the executive committee and make submissions on why they should not be ineligible. A request by the director to be heard shall suspend the effects of the director's ineligibility until a decision is rendered by the executive committee. After hearing a director with respect to a request made pursuant to section 5.04A, the executive committee may decide that the conviction or other decisions on the basis of which the director would otherwise be ineligible should no longer reflect adversely on the director's character, and that the ineligibility is therefore waived or is suspended upon such terms and conditions as the executive committee may decide. Such a decision by the executive committee or a decision to the contrary is final and without appeal. And add a new section 5.05. Duty to disclose anticipated or pending proceedings. Directors who have reason to believe they might become ineligible pursuant to sections 5.03 and 5.03A shall immediately disclose such fact to the board through the chair and the executive director. Directors who are charged with a criminal offense are automatically suspended from office until a final decision in the matter. Directors who are parties to a civil or disciplinary proceeding described in subsections 5.03B, B, or 5.03B, C, that has not yet resulted in a final judgment may be suspended by a decision of the executive committee to be taken after a meeting where the director has the right to be heard, and such a decision is final and without appeal. The rest of the changes recommended are changes of renumbering.
Thank you, Cynthia. Would you like to move acceptance of this amendment?
I so move the acceptance of the amendment to the proposed new bylaws.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I second. Joy Gothard.
Thank you, Joy. And now we're open for discussion. Are there any questions for Cynthia?
There's one in the chat that Stephen Koner asked, I believe. I don't know if everybody can see it, but it was there.
Okay. Stephen asks, what happens if you have a non-disclosure agreement? Conflict with 5.03.C, or is that a hornet's nest? Cynthia.
Okay. What happens if who has a non-disclosure agreement? The person?
The person, yeah, the person. The person who's on the executive or on the board, sorry.
If they have a
right, they can't disclose something because there's a non-disclosure clause, but you're asking them to disclose.
Okay, thank you, David. David, I see that David Schultz has raised his hand,
Yes.
and I'm really hoping and praying he has an answer.
Oh my gosh. It's rare that I can say to someone, your prayers have been answered. I off the top of my head, I would say we would expect the director to disclose notwithstanding the non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
But they're not, they're not as common in Canada as in the United States. And yeah, I'm just thinking, usually non-disclosure agreements bind a plaintiff, somebody who brought proceedings, where the defendant says, okay, we're settling, but we're not admitting anything, so this remains confidential. I don't think it would be very likely to occur if you were the defendant, right, and the person being sued for misconduct. I don't think I think it'd be less likely that there'd be any kind of non-disclosure obligation about the fact that you were being sued. I guess I could imagine, you're making me think of this, I'd never thought about before. I think there might be an issue if somebody was charged under the Youth Offenders Act. I don't know, I don't know if since youth crimes are supposed to be confidential, I don't know where that would end up. But so that's my quick answer.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments, Cynthia? I see. All right. If there are no more questions or concerns, I think we are then ready for the vote. So we have the motion that the membership approve the recommended changes to the bylaw on directors of the corporation. It's been moved and second. Brian, we're ready for the vote.
And just to reiterate, Valerie, this requires a 2/3 majority to pass.
Okay,
And the last count that we have 35 plus one. We have 35 members plus proxy. So it would need to be a 2/3 majority of 36, which would be 24.
All right. We're just waiting for the results now.
Yeah, it has passed with over 2/3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Could we, for the record, Andrea, have I'm assuming this is Andrea that's saying it's passed?
Yes.
Yes, it's me.
Could we, for the record, Andrea, have the vote, the number of people voted?
Yep.
The number of people voting along with the number of ayes, and have you counted in that I was proxy for one person and that vote counts in favor?
Okay. So if it was proxy, then that would be 35 people voted. 34 in favor and 1 against. With the proxy that you just told us.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And that has been noted. Thank you. And also been noted the work that went into this bylaw changes. And thank you to the bylaw working group for all their work on this. And we will move forward now into the presentation of the audited financial statements. And we have Charlene with us, our treasurer.
Good afternoon, everyone. As I approach the end of my first 3-year term as treasurer, I want to express what an honor it has been to serve PWRDF, working alongside such a committed group of board members, staff, donors, and volunteers, all devoted to global justice and international development, has been a profound privilege. And together we have made an impact in countless lives by faithfully using our resources to further God's vision. Number 2. I'm just sharing my screen. Okay. So PWRDF has consistently remained faithful to its calling, and that is to build a just, healthy, and peaceful world, responding to God's call to bring healing into a broken world. Financially, the best way to summarize our progress is by looking at our audited financial statements. On page 1 of the audited financial statements, you will see that our auditors have issued an unqualified opinion, meaning our financial statements present fairly PWRDF's financial position and results of operation. This gives us the confidence in the accuracy and reliability of our accounting records and financial reports. In the audit findings letter, our auditors highlighted that there were no internal control weaknesses or other issues requiring our attention. For this, we owe a great deal of thanks to our Executive Director, Will Posma, and the finance team led by Alice for their excellent stewardship of the resources entrusted to PWRDF by donors and the government. Through God's provision and the dedicated efforts of our volunteers, staff, and the board, we have been blessed with abundant resources to fulfill God's mission. Our total resources grew from 11.9 million in 2003 to 13.2 million in by March 2024, reflecting a 1.2 million increase, which is 10.15% from the previous fiscal year. This growth is primarily due to an increase in the market value of our investment portfolio. Our statement of financial position shows that PWRDF remains financially sound, with 85% of our assets in investments, 14% in cash, including funds in Canadian Food Grains Bank, and 1% in grant receivables as of March 2024. On page 9 of the financial statements, you will note that our investment portfolio is diversified across international equities, which represents 43%, fixed income, which represents 36%, and Canadian equities, which represents 21%. Our Finance and Investments Committee continues to closely monitor our portfolio to ensure that they are in line with our statement of investments and policies. Looking at our operations on page 5, you will note that while donors remain strong in 2024, with 8.9 million raised, this represents a 6.8% drop from the 10.98 million in 2023. However, donations are often influenced by the scale of humanitarian crisis in any given year. Emergency responses for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 included Gaza, Ukraine, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Syria. Our revenue sources for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 were as follows. We have 50% donations from parishes and individuals, 10% from foundation grants, 28% from Canadian Food Grains Bank, 8% from bequest, and 4% from our investment income. Bequest continues to be a meaningful way for donors to support our work. In 2024, we received 506,224 from 24 donors, and in 2023, we received 950,940 from 26 donors. These bequests ensure the longevity of our mission, and I salute Anglicans for their generosity in remembering PWRDF in their wills. In 2024, or the fiscal year, recent fiscal year, we spent 8.86 million to fulfill our mission. 63% were spent on programs, 20% on program delivery, 12% on administration, and 5% on fundraising. As we review our operations compared to the previous fiscal year and our budget, it is clear that PWRDF's work continues to resonate with supporters across Canada, even as the number of projects we supported decreased slightly from 76 in 33 countries in 2022 to 2023 to 70 projects in 32 countries in 2023 to 2024. Our mission remains strong and our commitment is unwavering. Donations over the last 5 years tell a story of consistent generosity. From 4.3 million in 2019 to 5.4 million in 2024. Anglicans across Canada continue to support the mission of global justice and development with compassion and dedication. In closing, I extend my gratitude to all the volunteers, donors, diocesan representatives, staff, and board members for your steadfast support. Your work that has been produced by faith, all the labor prompted by love, and endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ has sustained PWRDF's mission and allowed us to answer God's call through our organization. As we think about the future, let us consider how we can continue to share God's gift through our time, talents, and treasures, whether by volunteering in retirement, making legacy gift, or simply staying committed to the cause of PWRDF. We all play a vital role in ensuring PWRDF's mission endures. As written in Micah 6 verse 8, we are called to act justly, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. Thank you for your faithfulness in supporting the important work of PWRDF. And as I end my report, I want to thank our trusted and dedicated finance team headed by Alice for their commitment to maintaining the integrity and reliability of our finances. And with that, I move that the financial statements for the last fiscal year be accepted and that Norton McMullen be appointed to audit our financials for the fiscal year 2024 to 2025. I would be happy to answer any question you may have as well.
Okay. Thank you, Shailene. I think what we'll do, we'll go with motion 3 first. I have you moving that the audit financial statements for 2023-24 be accepted as presented. Is there a seconder?
I will, Valerie Isaac.
Valerie Isaac, thank you. Are there any questions to this motion? I don't see any. Thank you very much, Shailene, for your report. We will proceed with the vote now. We have a motion.
Question from Bar, Valerie?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Mine was not a question. Mine was a word of thanks.
Thank you, Bar, for that.
To Shailene and the team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that report.
We join you, Bar. I see other people are clapping as well. So thank you very much, Shailene. Let us get to the vote now. We have a motion that has moved in second. Brian, could you put out the poll, please? And are the results in?
Yeah, we have in favor. The motion
Thank you. It is carried.
carried.
Thank you. And now the second part of your motion there, Shailene, that Norton McMillan be appointed to audit the PWRDF financials for 2024-25. Are you okay with that, Shailene?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Okay, I see Chandra has raised his hand. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, see none. We're ready for the vote. Brian, if you could put the poll up, please. Good. And are the results in?
Yes,
Is it carried?
it's carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Valerie Isaac, who's the chair of the Finance and Investment Committee, who's going to introduce a special visitor to us. Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie. Much appreciated. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, as you have noticed with the report from Shailene. And one of those big reports is having our financials audited. And Norton McMillan is a well-respected and well-known accounting office, and we are well served by their team, especially Peter Simpson, who has been part of that team since 2014, and I understand a partner since 2019. On behalf of the board, I'd like to offer my thanks to him and to his staff for providing us with this written report that we have received and the results of their audit. And at this time, I'd like to invite him to say hello and make any comments to all of us.
That's great. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Peter here. So great to see you all and join the AGM and hear about the exciting work that is that's taking place here. As Shailene mentioned, we've a lot of work goes into putting together the financial statements and the audit. But you know, a lot of that is all internal, and so we really appreciate the work that Alice and Shailene and Will do in terms of actually getting the records up to date and in good order. And then from an audit perspective, we look at, you know, not just the numbers that you see on the financial statement there, but also looking at the internal controls. And so it's not very common that you would have, you know, few audit adjustments or internal control findings. Usually there's a lot for a lot of organizations. And so it's a testament to the work that you're doing and the importance that you place on financial reporting, that you have a clean audit with an unqualified report. No reportable matters, and it makes things you know, smooth from an audit perspective. And hopefully internally it's a good process as well. And the goal, you know, obviously is to provide the members and the board with financial statements that provide good insight into the financial position and the operations for the year. And so hopefully everything is clear within the financial statements and the report that you just heard on the finances. But yeah, we just want to echo what you've heard a little bit, that there's great work done internally, and we really appreciate that, and really appreciate the opportunity to be associated with you and support you in the capacity as auditors. So I'll turn that back over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, Valerie, for asking Peter to join us. I know it's a big project, and we are very thankful for our staff and the work that they do. And thank you for coming and sharing your findings with us today. Valerie, anything else?
Not at this time. I have nothing else. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We are moving on to the next agenda item. And this is an agenda item from the nominating committee. The nominating committee for the board consists of Peter Wall and Donald Butler and myself. I'm the chair at the moment. This first motion, motion 5, that the PWRDF membership approve the expansion of board membership by 1, bringing it to 17 directors, came from the work of the nominating committee because we're quite concerned that about the oversight and the governance work being done. It is done by committees, and this past year we found it difficult to get the work done with the membership that we have, 16, and just populating the committees so that the work is shared and that there's not too much of a heavy load for any one person. So that's where it came from. We are allowed, as has been pointed out, a range of 3 to 20. It's been mandated at 16 for a number of years, and we would like to expand it. Peter.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm happy to move that the membership approve the expansion of the board by 1, bringing the total board membership to 17 directors.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a seconder?
I can second. Ian Van Haren.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. And is there any discussion? Just say that last year we had 8 committees and 2 working groups, and for 16 people, that was a lot of meetings and a lot of work. Okay, seeing no further questions or hands raised.
There is one hand raised.
Oh, is there? Thank you.
Debbie Penton.
Oh, Debbie. Must be on my other screen. Debbie, you had a question?
You're just on mute, Debbie. Sorry.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just thinking that in light of the number of committees and the workload, an increase of 1 director is a very modest increase. Had you considered perhaps 2?
I can speak to that. Thank you, Debbie, for the question. It's a good one. We decided on asking for 1, and we've also have the available to us the option of inviting non-board members to committees. And I think we're hoping that we will find volunteers that have the skills and the knowledge and experience and the desire to work with us.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I've gone to the other screen. I see nothing. Brian, I think we're ready for the vote. Andrea, is there?
The motion is carried.
Thank you. Motion is carried. And I would like to ask Peter to speak to the next motion.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm happy to move motion 6, particularly now that I can, the membership having changed the bylaws just a few minutes ago. This motion is now in order, that the membership affirm the appointments of the Right Reverend Helen Kennedy as the representative from the House of Bishops and Robin Sulco as the Youth Council representatives on the PWRDF Board of Directors. I might add, just parenthetically, not part of the motion, that we do not yet have the named representative from the Anglican Council of Indigenous Peoples, but that will happen in due course. So the motion is before you to affirm those two appointments as the bylaws require us to do.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a seconder? Did I see
Seconded.
Don? Oh, okay. I think I saw Cynthia's hand go up. Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, I think we're ready for the vote. Brian, could you please put the poll up? And are there results?
I just ended the poll. Yes, the motion is carried.
Thank you. And the motion is carried. Thank you. At this time, I would like to present to you the candidates running for board membership. And as of our motion 5, we do now have 4 places and we have 6 candidates. We are very thankful for the 6 candidates to have stepped forward. They're all outstanding individuals, every one of them, all with the desire to serve and share their skills and knowledge in the support of PWRDF. I will list them here. We have the Reverend Anne Martha Kinara from the Diocese of the Arctic. We have Robert Orr from the Diocese of Ottawa. We have David Collins from the Diocese of Islands and Inlets. We have Duncan Chambers from the Diocese of New Westminster. We have Lillian Score Olson from the Diocese of Huron, seeking re-election. We have Shailene Kaparis from the Diocese of New Westminster, seeking re-election. In a moment, you'll see the ballot. There will be 6 names on it, and you'll be asked to select up to 4 names. If you are having trouble on the screen seeing all 6 names, I invite you to look to the right of the list and scroll down on the bar, or you can also use the maximizing button in the top right corner. So again, please select up to 4 candidates. Clicking on more than 4 will result in a spoiled ballot. If you do make a mistake, you can always double click on it and change your mind and redo it. But please, up to 4 selections. I think we're ready for the vote. Could you put the ballot up, please, Brian? Thank you. Now, it will take some minutes for this election to be completed, as well as the results tallied. So I will move on now to the next agenda item, which is the appointment of the honorary associates. And I will ask Will to speak. Thank you, Will.
Okay, thanks, Valerie. Hey, I'm really honored myself to be able to welcome 3 new honorary associates. Currently, we have 25, and I know when I travel, I just meet so many wonderful volunteers supporting our vision for a world that is truly just, healthy, and peaceful. Today, we're just going to hear from 3 honorary associates, new honorary associates, and ask them to say a few words. And an honorary associate, as per how we have worked that through in PWRDF, are those who offer and have offered prolonged and exceptional service to PWRDF. And just really pleased to be able to give a few minutes to Reverend Dorothy, to Janet, and to Archbishop Linda. If you're all with us, and maybe Reverend Dorothy, I can ask you just to say a few words. We'll listen to you, and then we'll pass it on to Janet and Archbishop Linda. Dorothy, you're still with us? I just saw you were still with us. So if you want to unmute, and if you wish to say a few words, that would be lovely. Just going to check the gallery where Dorothy is. I see Dorothy. Dorothy, can you hear us? Can you hear me? I see you on your iPhone.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It wasn't unmuting for me. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. We can hear you well.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd just like to say thank you for the honor of becoming an honorary associate of PWRDF. St. Martin's Church has been a longtime supporter of PWRDF's work. And it was such a nice surprise to hear from Valerie Mayer that my name had been put forward for this honor. A visit from yourself and Rebecca to the Diocese of Yukon, our parish and our parish in Atlin, meant so much to us, as well as the visits and the encouragement and support of our diocesan representative, Betty Davidson. It helps us to keep informed of the great work that's being done and done by the fund and all the current needs that are coming up. The churches in the north have been recipients of others' generous outreach over the years. It feels so good when we've been so blessed by others that we can in turn help others through the Primates World Relief and Development Fund and know our donations are being used wisely. We thank you all for the work that you're doing, and St. Martin's in Atlin is looking forward to continued support of this work. Thank you so much for that honor.
Dorothy, hey, thank you so very much, and for your hospitality that you showed to many in a very beautiful part of British Columbia, but you're in the Diocese of Yukon.
We are.
How wonderful, how wonderful. Let me see if Janet is here. Janet, if you're able to unmute and just say and share a few things.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there you are.
Well, I also would just like to thank the board for this tremendous honor. I'd like to thank those who nominated me and the board for accepting the nomination. I'm part of a team in the Diocese of New Westminster, so I feel it's an honor for the whole team too. There's 6 of us and we work together, and it certainly helps to lighten the load. When I first heard about PWRDF, I was told that it was a charity that you could trust. And at the time, there was quite a lot of publicity about charities that were spending the money in not such wise ways. So it was refreshing and heartening to hear about PWRDF. And I've certainly found that the communication is great, the transparency is great, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to support PWRDF for the past, I'm not sure how many years, but quite a few years. So thank you for that. And finally, I just want to say that it's been fun. I mean, doing walks with new people and getting to know them and discovering new places to walk. Having a bread bake-a-thon and getting to sample the product afterwards, that's fun. And having a parish dinner, lasagna dinner. There's lots of ways of fundraising that I see other people doing too that are just, a lot of fun and bring parishes together. So my parish of St. John the Divine in Maple Ridge has enthusiastically supported me, and I thank them too. I thank everyone at PWRDF.
Mm-hmm. Janet, thanks. And, fundraising that brings people together, loving God, loving our neighbor, as Deborah said this morning as well, this afternoon or earlier in our meeting. And Archbishop Linda is with us as well. And Archbishop Linda is walking for the wild ride and on her way to 200 kilometers as just one of many, 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 many ways in which the Archbishop has supported us in her time as primate and before as well. Just so grateful that you're with us. Archbishop Linda, could I ask you to say a few words?
Well, I've known about PWRDF for many, many years as a parishioner, and then as a deacon, a priest, and then as a bishop. But it's really been my pleasure in these last years as primate to work so closely with the staff of PWRDF to be a champion for its work. And so thank you to Janice and to Suzanne and to Carolyn, who've just so many times have come alongside and asked me to participate, and I have delighted every time I've been able to do that. And most especially last year when I was able in January 2023 to travel to see PWRDF projects in Kenya and to meet the people who on the ground who receive the funds that are raised in Canada, and then to see the remarkable work they do with very little and turning it into something wonderful, whether that's the dairy projects or the water projects, and to see what a difference it makes on the ground. So to be able to walk with people here and to support the wild ride, especially during COVID, to do things I love to do, to play hymns and sing, and more recently to walk. And I must admit, I'm beginning to wonder if my 200-kilometer goal was a tad ambitious. I'm up to 30 kilometers since Tuesday, but 200 may not go. As long as you let me canoe part of it, I may be okay. But and I'd like to echo what the other two honorees have said in knowing that this is an organization that's run with excellence, as I've seen in the board meetings, and with transparency, and constantly seeking to improve, as we've just seen in some of the motions, trying to make sure that the structure and the organization of PWRDF reflects the values that are at its core. And as Will just said, loving God and loving neighbor. So thank you. It's a wonderful honor to be an associate, and I look forward to championing its work as a retired primate. So thank you.
Archbishop Linda, thank you. And yes, please do stay close. So inspirational. Reverend Dorothy, Janet, Archbishop Linda, thank you so very much for joining us. And I will turn it back to Valerie at this point. Can I bring it back to you, Valerie?
Yes, thank you very much. I was just about to chat and see if we have any results yet. Cynthia, our scrutineer, how are we doing? Cynthia? Well, I think you're muted there, Cynthia.
My apologies. Okay, the results are in. They are the 4 people with the highest votes are Lillian Score-Olson, Shailene Caparas, Anne, and you're going to have to tell me Anne's last name. I apologize.
Oh, and Margaret? Yes, I think I said it correctly earlier. Keenan?
Okay, and David Collins.
Oh, and Martha and David. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cynthia, and thank you to the team of staff that are behind there with the voting for that. We have the results now. We have 4 elected, and I wonder, Peter, could you make a motion?
Madam
please?
Chair, I'm happy to move that the PWRDF membership approve the appointment of the 4 candidates who received the highest votes in the Board of Directors election.
Thank you. And is there a seconder? Whoop. I think, was that you, Betty? Oh, Bar. All right. So we have, that was Peter and Bar. Thank you. Just to remind you, that's Lillian, Shailene, and Martha and David. Congratulations. We're glad to have you on the board. Any questions or comments? Lois. Oh, that's congratulations. Thank you, Lois.
Just congratulations to all, and thank you for everyone that put their name forward.
Thank you, Lois, for that comment. Any others? All right, I think we're ready for the vote on this, Brian. Could you put the poll up, please? All right. And do we have results?
Yes, I just ended the poll and it is carried.
Thank you. Thank you to the membership. We needed that specific motion to follow the regulations for the CRA and Imagine Canada. Thank you for that. And Donald, do you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that the nomination ballots be destroyed after the election of the directors.
Thank you, Donald. And is there a seconder?
Cynthia, I'll second.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Cynthia, I'll have you there. That's a motion to destroy the ballots, moved by Donald and second by Cynthia. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none or seeing no hands raised. Brian, I think we're ready for the vote. Thank you. Okay. Do we have results?
Yes, I just ended the poll and the motion is carried.
Thank you. Again, congratulations to the successful candidates. We're moving on now to the next part of the agenda, which is my president's address, and I will talk fast. I know there's another meeting coming at 5:30. I do want to thank everyone for joining us at this annual meeting of PWRDF. We're so glad that so many members could attend today through our wider supporting network on YouTube as well. So thanks to both viewing groups. I am very thankful that through technology, we can come together from across Canada and beyond. This is my final report to you, as it marks the conclusion of my 9th year on the board and the delivery of this, my 5th report to you as president. I deeply appreciate your support over the years. Today, I'd like to share with you some highlights of some of our past accomplishments and my thoughts as how we can continue to be a strong advocate, an ally, and partner to the most vulnerable in the world. It's been an incredibly busy year for the board. We completed a fresh strategy for the next 5 years, from 2024 ending in 2029, identifying 7 major priorities, clarifying our mission, and affirming our vision and values based on what the prophet Micah had to say 3,000 years ago, challenging each of us to do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. As well, the board and staff completed Imagine Canada's rigorous reaccreditation 5-year review process that assesses our compliance with government regulations and ensures that we are following best practices. All the committees had pieces to do. A working group was struck to review our governance structure, update the bylaw and policies with a view to protect the organization to meet the demands of the future. As Cynthia said, we have stronger, clearer, and more concise language to facilitate governance and oversight. You've seen it today. Thank you all for moving this forward. And mandated by the board in 2022, a task team was formed to find a new name to complement and build on our graphic branding imagery. The work of this team has drawn on the organization's strengths and experience and aims to support our next steps in our work globally, including in Canada, with a view to broadening our support base and enhancing public engagement and programming. This work is nearing completion. I'd hoped to be with it, and I hope, but here we are. The membership will find out more about this after the AGM at a special meeting of members. Legal work on the name's English and French versions, the trademark, and the acquisition of a domain name should be completed this fall and revealed very, very soon. The task team consulted widely with supporters and partners, and I believe by engaging many across Canada, we were able to adopt a new name and tagline that honors our past while connecting with diverse supporters across Canada. Many thanks to the members of that task team and all those who were polled and participated in the process. Our Finance and Investment Committee has collaborated with the staff finance team to diversify our funding resources, leveraging and pooling funding sources from the Canadian Food Games Bank, charitable foundations, and other agencies. This has allowed us to create a larger and more responsive budget. It's also connected us to ecumenical partners, extending our efforts to deliver programs to more communities. The Finance and Investment Committee continues to monitor our resources, making sure that our investment funds are doing good ethical work, investing in companies that demonstrate sound environmental, social, and governance practices. Working alongside, the Fundraising Committee has identified meaningful ways to recognize and encourage our generous donors and inspire our growing community of supporters. This past spring, the board traveled to Newfoundland, where in the beautiful setting of Cornerbrook, we were able to hold our meetings, meet supporters, and participate in 2 PWRDF projects. We visited the town of Burgeo, where an Indigenous responsive grant was bringing together people to build a community gathering space where Indigenous and non-Indigenous community members could enjoy and celebrate their history and the Micmac heritage. We also saw Port-au-Basque, where Hurricane Fiona destroyed over 130 homes. While in Newfoundland, the board was able to see more clearly how our staff works alongside communities to develop a project and bring it to completion. What stood out for me was the amount of conversation and trust developed to determine the community's wants and needs, what their resources are, and what individuals and community groups are there to help. This kind of consultation and learning together builds strong connections and hope for all. This spring, I was able to participate in a meeting of the Indigenous Program Advisory Committee in the NWT, where we also celebrated the long relations of PWRDF and the Glicho Nation on a project called the Trails of Our Ancestors, which continues to this day. This visit highlighted for me PWRDF's longstanding commitment to building respectful working relationships with Indigenous peoples. Here in Canada, our organization has not denied the misdeeds of the past or the task of finding new and creative ways to move forward. The Indigenous Program Advisory Committee is a group of Indigenous community leaders who since 2021 advise the staff on Indigenous issues. As well, the Indigenous Responsive Grant was developed, allowing PWRDF to respond quickly to funding needs and priorities identified by Indigenous communities. Used in Burgeo and elsewhere, these grants are centered on the priorities of partners and have been, as I say, instrumental in the development of respectful working relations with Canadian Indigenous groups. As well, 2 members of the Youth Council and a staff member took part in with Indigenous youth in Sacred Beginnings, an Anglican Church Indigenous program initiative to Indigenous young people. ASIP initiative to Indigenous young people together. Our youth and the Indigenous youth learned about their cultural traditions. It also included a suicide prevention and grief recovery component led by former PWRDF board member Dorothy Russell Patterson and her husband John. Another highlight for me is the deepening of our relationship with ecumenical partners, one being the Canadian Food Grains Bank. I remember that even 9 years ago, there were feelings of uncertainty about joining the Food Grains Bank community of 15 diverse churches and church groups. Canadian Food Grains Bank is now key in the diversifying and leveraging of our resources. And along the way, we have developed and forged strong partnerships of respect and cooperation. We've been able to collaborate and deliver more holistic programming that blends humanitarian relief with sustainable development, programming that I believe will lead to stronger and more resilient communities. Together, we've brought partners to Canada who visit and challenge us all to act and share. This November, partners from Turso Trust in Zimbabwe are coming to share about their program in Nature-Based Solutions, NBS, a program that aims to protect, manage, and restore ecosystems as well as address societal challenges like food security. I encourage you to meet our partners in person and join with other members and staff at this year's national gathering. 2023-24 has underscored for me how by coming together, the board and staff have managed to review, renew, and prepare for the future, setting us on a firm foundation so that we can meet the uncertainties of the future from a position of strength. And I want to thank the staff and board members, past and present, that I have served with. Your work, faith, and sharp vision of a truly just, healthy, and peaceful world has inspired me and continues to inspire me. Your abilities to work creatively under the pandemic and other challenges has allowed PWRDF to remain focused, yet nimble to adapt to the changing context of these times. Building relationships, listening, learning together creates trust and creative partnerships. I believe this is the only way that global issues of today can be addressed so that change can happen. And for your role in this, I salute you. A special thank you to Will for his leadership, his vision, and the steering of PWRDF in these past years. Thank you for your help, especially to the board and to me. Lastly, I would like to thank the many, many people who have been supporters of PWRDF, creatively and faithfully advocating for the vulnerable and those whom our Lord describes as the least of these, our brothers and sisters. This has been exemplified, I believe, in our 3 supporters who we recognize today, Janet, Linda, and Dorothy. Thank you for your long service engaging others in the work of PWRDF at the parish and diocesan levels and national levels. Thank you for pointing out how much fun it is as well. It's fun doing good. You have inspired many by your selfless generosity of time and energy to help build a more just, equitable, and healthy communities. Diocesan representatives, youth council members, and supporters, thank you all for your contributions to make a difference in the world, to make it a better place for all. And as I look around in Canada abroad, I'm convinced that our work and our way of working is more needed now than ever before. As we move forward, inspired by those who have gone before and looking to those who are in need of our collaboration, let us never cease to do this in ways that are stronger, smarter, and collaborative, never losing sight of the vision of a truly just, healthy, and peaceful world. I will miss you all, and I thank you for this opportunity to be your president. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think I have to ask for any questions, but if there are, I'm here. I think now I'd like to turn the mic over to Cynthia and for our closing reflections and prayer.
Before I do that, Valerie, just a reminder that we will have a brief break and then we will reconvene with a special meeting of members. Maybe you could give us the exact timing of that.
Will, would you like to meet in 5 minutes or so after the
Sure. I was just going to put the link into the chat for everyone to see.
Thank you.
But maybe let's take a break of maybe 5 minutes, Cynthia. But
Okay.
please don't go until I get that link in there for everyone to see, so that we can just go straight or go to the meeting without too much delay there. One quick moment here.
And don't go before I do my closing prayer.
That's right. You have your closing
Yes.
prayer as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why don't you do the closing prayer and then I will
Thank you.
get the link in there.
So I just want to add my own thanks and that of the boards to all who joined us here for this AGM, for your continued faithfulness to God and to this ministry that we call PWRDF. Also would like to welcome those who have been newly elected to the board and those who are returning to the board. That we have more candidates than positions, I believe, points to the health of this organization. It means that people are passionate about the work that we do and want to contribute to it. And we're really grateful for that. And as Valerie mentioned earlier, those who were not elected are still able to participate in our work. And we really hope and pray that you will be willing to do so. We also acknowledge with gratitude at this time the board members who are not returning. Bishop Todd Townsend from the House of Bishops, whose contribution and whose wisdom we valued so much, and our now retired Primate Linda, whose support and guidance strengthened and encouraged us so much during our time on the board. But I want to say a really special thank you and express my sincere appreciation to our outgoing president, Valerie. I've been around this national level of PWRDF for almost 25 years, actually. And it was early on in my time when Valerie and I met. We were both diocesan coordinators. In my time with PWRDF, I have seen many gifted and talented leaders at the helm of this organization. And Valerie, most assuredly, I can tell you that you can be counted among them. Valerie's love and passion for this ministry is clear for anybody to see. And what many of you may not have seen is the many hours and the much effort that she has put into her role. her passion, her commitment, making sure that the business of the board is dealt with properly, that it's dealt with efficiently and effectively and transparently. And just she gives her all. She has given her all, and we have all seen that and witnessed that. We have been well served by her. You have been well served by all you who are volunteers who work with PWRDF. And more importantly, God's mission has been well served by her tenure. So Valerie, thank you. And I'd encourage you all to go down to your reactions and do a ta-da or a clap or whatever you can do to say a thank you to Valerie.
Thank you.
Let me take a look. Thank you.
And now we close with prayer, and it's a prayer written by Edward Hayes from a book called Prayers for the Servants of God. Lord of day and night, of beginnings and endings, as we prepare to conclude this meeting, we once again lift up our hearts to you, the divine source of all life. We thank you for the gifts that have been present within this act of service to the community, for the gifts of fellowship and understanding, of mutual respect and shared vision. We are grateful. For the gifts of perseverance and of insight into the common concerns we share. For these and all other graces, we are thankful. May your ever youthful blessing be upon us. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the kind words and the lovely prayer. And as this meeting draws to a close, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Is there a seconder? Valerie Isaac, thank you. And there's no, we'll just show by a show of hands. All in favor, please raise your hand. And it is carried. Thank you. And for lovely, thank you. I've got everybody there. That motion to adjourn has happened at 5:41 Eastern. And I'll turn it over to Will to say when he's going to start the meeting up for the special board meeting for the membership. Will.
Sure, for sure. Hey, well, you can come on back right away, but let's take maybe 4 or 5 minutes for fluid adjustment or whatever we need to do, stretch, and we'll start again the special members meeting. So members are all encouraged to come, and it'll be a wonderful moment just to hear about the proposed new name. And Shailene and Cynthia will be there to welcome us. Okay, 5:40.